Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and as Shadowlands beta has been going on for quite a bit, Blizzard has made a lot of good progress to a variety of classes and even made certain specs from bad to better and actually very enjoyable. So the progress in the beta has been so far amazing, and I have to give Blizzard the credit. But not every spec has been truly redesigned or has had the changes it sorely needs. In this video, I want to highlight some of the specs that I feel like really need an update and maybe a bit of a facelift when it comes to checking it out for the next expansion of Shadowlands. Blizzard got most of them right, but I could pick out 4 specs that I feel like are still in a sore spot and definitely need some sort of a small rework. The first spec I will put on the list is Survival Hunter. I feel like it's actually one of the specs that I'm very excited about. I think it's going to be quite a bit of fun between the melee/range playstyle and having a trusted pet by your side with poisons, grenades, and everything in between. But it's obvious that the spec still has a ways to go, as there's actually quite a few abilities that are limiting the potential of the spec. For example, why are all your melee abilities tied to polearm for the spec of survival, when currently in BFA you can use either a staff or a polearm which apply agility? So it makes sense that Blizzard would limit certain abilities to specific weapons. And even talking about the utility of hunters of tranquilizing shot, getting removed from the pet rather to the hunter, you actually cannot use tranq shot without a ranged weapon on a class that's supposed to be a melee hunter. Besides the fundamental things that still need to be fixed with the spec, I feel like there's quite a bit of talents that kind of make up the spec's playstyle. Talents that are unique and kind of revolve around the base of what the spec should be doing. Like Mongoose Bite. That has been kind of the counter pick for most of this expansion. You just kind of set it and forget it, and 4 seasons later, you're still playing with Mongoose Bite. So for Survival Hunters, it feels like maybe certain talents, maybe Mongoose Bite, should be baseline to the spec, since they kind of like create the play style, and without those talents, you just can't even imagine how the spec will play without them. It's actually a very cool and unique playstyle of survival, and I really want it to be good, but I feel like Blizzard just needs a little bit more of touches with survival in order to really make it perfect. I honestly would want it to be a spec that more people would want to check out, but in the current state and from Battle for Azeroth and Legion, it gave quite a few people a bad taste in their mouth, unless you primarily PvP. So hopefully Blizzard is still able to adjust the playstyle of the spec in the few updates, and that's one of the specs that I'll put on this list. Another spec that I think feels a little weird, even though the damage is just fine, is going to be Balanced Druid. One of the most exciting things that I thought about Boomkins is the return of the Eclipse system. Basically with Eclipse, you use abilities that are of nature or lunar variety, and then you enter eclipses. During the solar eclipse, all your nature-based abilities do more damage. And with Wrath being the base nature ability, you would think that during solar, Boomies will be able to pump quite a bit of single target damage while being able to spread Sunfire in an AoE fashion for some sustained damage. And during lunar eclipse, you will be able to blast enemies with Starfire, which has a lot of bursty AoE component, while Moonfire is more of a single target ability to apply sustained pressure to the one target you want. I feel like the solar and lunar empowerments with your Eclipse system is a little too rigid, and it doesn't have as big of a payoff. In Battle for Azeroth, every time you press Star Surge, you would get empowerments for lunar and nature abilities, and you can use them in any way you wanted. The empowerments modified both of those abilities of Wrath and Starfire to basically do the same thing. Wrath got a bit of a cleave effect, while Starfire had a slightly faster cast, so it was both decent filler spells that did the same thing. However, in this expansion, Solar has a lot of single target potential behind the casts of Wrath, which do not have any splash AoE. And Starfires have a bit of cleave. During Lunar, that cleave should do quite a bit of damage. My expectations for Boomkins were that in a trash pack for Plus, you'll be able to drop yourself into a lunar eclipse and cleave enemies down, while in boss fights you'll be able to take advantage of the solar eclipse quite often and shred through the bosses. But instead, it turns out that the best damage for Boomkins ends up being Star Surge still, and as well as Starfall, which is a good thing. Starfall being able to give you more cleave potential for Boomies will give you ability to deal with trash packs easier. But if you're a Balanced Druid, going into a Mythic Plus group, into a big group of enemies, even if you are in Solar Eclipse, it's actually still better to keep spitting out Starfires because they cleave. Because of the rigidity of the solar eclipses as well as lunar eclipses and that type of system, where the game really wants you to press one type of an ability over the other, and where players simply ignore that rule completely because they want to do more damage, I feel like the eclipse system doesn't have nearly as big of a payoff. I think Blizzard needs to either rework it so it's not quite as rigid, or maybe give a massive bonus to the abilities related to the eclipses. Like during solar, I think a balanced druid should be able to shred a single target. And during lunar, you should be able to be the master of AoE cleave. Another spec on this list is going to be Assassination. You might be asking, but what's wrong with Assass? It's a rogue, and rogues are doing pretty good so far. And yes, rogues are doing really good. Assassination still brings everything a rogue brings. Smoke bomb in PvP, shroud in Mythic Plus dungeons, quite a lot of survivability, and of course, bleeds and poisons. What else is there not to love? However, Assassination in this expansion is getting slice and dice like every other spec. And a lot of you guys that played Assassination on PTR or in the beta might have noticed that maintaining slice and dice with Garrote as well as Rupture has been really difficult in this expansion, even on your characters that you boosted from Battle for Azeroth. It's a weird combination where I felt like Assass already had quite a bit of maintenance with your dots as well as Envenoms and Toxic Blade, but throwing slice and dice into the mix, and it feels a little weird. At first I thought it wouldn't be a bad deal. You would just maintain Slice and Dice and you would maintain Bleeds and Envenom only from time to time. But after playing it for a while, it feels like certain abilities just feel neglected. You have them, you really want to press them, but there's no way in hell you have enough energy or combo points in order to maintain all these abilities and all these effects at the same time, as much as you want to. And of course, poisons, auto attacks, and venoms are all going to be abilities that will do quite a substantial amount of damage, where bleeds actually don't really look all that strong for pure single target, as weird as that may sound. I would really like to return the core of Assassination playstyle, maybe without Slice and Dice. Like, you can keep Slice and Dice in the game, but in the past there was a buff where upon using Envenom, it actually extends the duration of an existing Slice and Dice. This way Blizzard wouldn't have to take away Slice and Dice out of the game. And for rogues playing in Mythic Pluses and in raids, maintaining Slice and Dice is still going to be core to the playstyle. You'll just maintain it in different ways that doesn't interfere with the smooth, fun playstyle. The final spec is going to be Protection Warrior, and now I know it's weird to have a tank spec amongst a bunch of DPS, but Protection Warriors I feel like are very underwhelming in the eyes of the community. For me personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with Protection. It still has the old school playstyle of blocking and mitigating damage as no other tank can, where you can't really mitigate damage, you just try to absorb it or ignore it by using Ignore Pain and a variety of different defenses. And quite frankly, the damage output with the executes coming back to the spec could actually be quite an interesting playstyle. I feel like the Protection Warrior has been a staple in the World of Warcraft community for PvE. It has been the go-to tank that other tanks are kind of drawing inspiration from. But right now it seems that Protection Warriors, by most people's standards, are very underwhelming. I see literally nobody playing them when it comes to the actual raid testing, let alone barely anybody tries them in dungeons. Even Max from Libet said that they are in a really bad spot. And while we don't always listen to streamers' ideas about how good classes are or not, you gotta admit it creates a bad meta. You hear it from a popular streamer and soon enough everybody is going to be repeating the same mantra. Protection Warriors have had a really cool synergy with a variety of talents in order to make them super strong without really becoming strong. Most of it having to do through gear and certain unique combinations and playstyle alterations in order to be really awesome. I think Blizzard needs to take a second look at Protection Warrior, as I would say right now it is one of those tanks that's probably at the bottom of the barrel for a variety of players. And I don't really know if it's going to be an issue of balancing. There's no amount of damage reduction that could make the spec feel good to play. I feel like it needs a little bit of an overhaul, maybe new talents, and a slight alteration to its playstyle to be fundamentally better, even with less stats and with weaker gear. Shadowlands actually have done quite a lot of good for classes and specs. It have brought back class identity by bringing back certain iconic abilities back to the table, which is awesome. However, there are certain specs that are just not perfect or not really finalized just yet. There's still plenty of time to get them perfect, so I'm hoping Blizzard takes the time. Thank you guys so much for watching, hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts as always, and I'll see every one of you in the next one.